cracks or frays, no dry rot. It's in good shape. The belt is a serpentine belt which runs down to my water pump. I want to make sure the water pump is not leaking any fluids on the front of it. That takes care of those. Now on the driver's side over here, first thing I'll check is my oil level. Make sure that it's to the proper level and not creamy in color, indicating that there might be water in it. Check my air compressor. No leaks in it. The governor has no cracks in it, so the air compressor is in good shape. Looking over the engine for all the hoses and everything, and hoses coming down from my power steering reservoir. Make sure that the fluids level is proper. Make sure I have no leaks on any of the hoses. Make sure that the power steering gearbox has no leak around it. It's tight and secured, so it's not got any problems. My column, steering column coming down, greased proper, U-joint's okay. Pitman arm is tight. Make sure that the Carter key is in the place of the castle nut there. Drag link coming back. Make sure the Carter key and castle nut are in there. Everything's okay in the cross arm. Everything's good. Takes care of my steering linkage. Spring mounts and shocks. My springs, there's 2 leaf springs. Neither are cracked or broken or misaligned. My spring mounts, my front mount, U-bolts in center, and my rear mounts, all the bolts are tight. Nothing's missing. No cracks in any of them, so they're in good shape. My shock absorber, the rubber is in top and bottom, and it's not leaking any fluid. All the bolts are tight, not missing. Coming down to my brakes. My brake hose, my brake line, both are here, not rubbing on anything, not cracked or broken, no dry rot in them. My brake chamber, no dents, tight, secured, not flopping around. My slack adjuster, pull on it, would move less than 1 inch by hand, so that it's in proper adjustment. All the little pins are in place, so it's not loose. I check on my brake drum and my brake shoes. Make sure that the shoes or pads have at least 1/4 inch of wear on them, left on them, and make sure that my brake drum has no cracks or breaks in it. Making sure that the brake drum itself is not unevenly worn on the inside. Brake drum for hear a dead sound, hear a pingy sound. The pingy sound means the sound goes all the way around, there's no crack in it. Dead sound, it's got a hole or a crack. Way to test them. Okay, we're going to do my tire. On my tire I got ICD. It's properly inflated. Manufacturer specifies how much inflation should be. So it's properly inflated. Make sure there's no sidewall abrasions, no cuts, and no bulge. Make sure the tread depth itself is at least 4/32 on the front tire, 2/32 thereafter. Make sure the rim has no cracks, no welds. The rim's okay. Make sure that the lug nuts are all tight and secured and no rust trails coming off of them. My hub oil seal in the front, I could pull it and check for fluid level. Make sure it's properly fluid, got a proper fluid level in it. Make sure that the inside axle seal is not leaking any fluids. Takes care of my front. As I come back, I'm going to check the driver's door, make sure that it opens, closes, and the mirrors are tight and secured, not cracked or broken on the mirrors. I get back here, I want to do my ABCs. A stands for my air and electrical lines. Make sure they are hooked up proper to the cab. They're not dragging on the catwalk. The safeties are in both on there and there. So the safeties are latches okay. B is my battery box cover, which is the door. My battery box has no corrosion on the caps, and it is tight and secured in the box. My batteries are, so they're okay. C is my catwalk. It's tight and secured, not flopping around. It would support my weight if I needed to get up there to fix something on the cab. D is my drive shaft, and the drive shaft is okay. No abundance of play in it. The U-joints are in good shape. So after I've done my drive shaft, I'll do my exhaust system. I'm looking at the exhaust coming off the motor all the way back here. Make sure there's no black soot coming out of any of the joints so that it is tight and secured. and not leaking anywhere. After I've done my exhaust, I will do the frame. The frame on the tractor, straight all the way from the front to the rear. All the cross members are in place, no bolts are missing. The F also stands for my fuel tank. The fuel tank is tight, secured, and the cap is on, so it's not leaking any fuel. G is the glad hands on the front of the trailer. Make sure that they're even, not leaking any air. After I've done my G, I do my H, the header board. Header board's not all bowed or anything, so the load hasn't shifted or bent it. And the lights on the top of the trailer are in place. They work when turned on. They're amber in color, and they're good. I've got reflective tape on the back of my tractor, which is in place and proper. Okay, then I will do, let's go for the coupling device. On my coupling device, I want to check my mounting bolts first. After I've checked my mounting bolts, I'm going to check my platform area to make sure that the platform will rock back and forth, not be cracked or dented in there. Check my apron up here on the top, make sure there's no wear marks in it on the top of the skid plate. On the other side, I will check my release arm, make sure the release arm is back and in place. Going around to the back, I can look up inside the jaws of my fifth wheel, and I want to make sure that the locking jaws are around my kingpin and the kingpin is not bent. And from there, I'm going to do my brakes on this axle. Check the hose and lines coming down to my big chamber down here. Make sure that the hose and lines aren't rubbing on anything. Make sure the chamber is not dented anywhere. After I've checked the chamber, if the brakes were released, I could pull on the slack adjuster, make sure that the slack adjuster would travel less than 1 inch by hand. If it travels more than an inch, you're out of adjustment. Go inside, and again, I'm going to look at my brake drums and brake shoes. Brake shoes have to have a 1/4 inch of wear left on them. Brake drums, no cracks, and no breaks in them, and no uneven wear inside of them. From there, we'll do the suspension. Suspension, I've got my spring mount, front mount, center U-bolt mounts in the center, and the rear mounts on the back. Make sure all the bolts are in place. None of the bolts on any 3 parts are broken or missing. Check my spring itself on the bottom, torsion arm on top. Make sure neither of them are broke or missing. After I've checked the torsion arm and the spring mounts, I come back here and I'll check my airbag. Make sure the airbag is inflated. The bolts on top of it and the bottom, all the bolts are tight and secured. Covers my spring mount, shock absorbers, airbags, and torsion arm. That'll cover all those parts. Then I'm going to do my tires. Now here I have 2 tires. You got to make sure there's proper space between them, about 2 inches of space, so that they're not rubbing on each other. Make sure I have no mismatched tires, bias to bias or radius to radius, whichever it is. Tires have to be at least 2/32 of tread depth in them. Make sure there's no sidewall abrasions on them, so the condition of the tire is in good shape, and they are both properly inflated. What holds the tires are the rims, and again, no cracks, no welds on the rims, inner rim or outer rim. Make sure all the lug nuts are tight and secured, no rust trails again. The gasket here, make sure it's not leaking. On the inside I have an axle seal, and I want to make sure the axle seal is not leaking down on the brake drum. From there, I'll come back and I'm going to check my brake lights, my turn signal lights, left and right. They're red in color. They work when turned on. And my running lights to make sure they are also working, so that all of my lights on the back there are working properly. Check the frame rail on my trailer. Frame rail straight, no bends, no dents. It's in good shape. And make sure my landing gear is all the way up, and the handle from the other side is stowed properly. So the handle would either be in the cab or it's in the shop That's where Pepsi keeps them, in the shop. On the side of the trailer, checking my reflective tape, make sure it's all there. None of it's missing. I'm going to check all the doors, make sure they're closed, secured, and everything's proper on the doors. They open and close easy. And we'll go back to the back. If you've done everything up there proper, when you get back here, he's going to say parts are parts. Okay? Meaning, okay, the suspension, spring mount shocks, torsion arm, airbag. Parts is parts. I already told you why. Brakes, you got a hose line, chamber, slack adjuster, drums, and linings. Already told you why. Tires, ICD, rims, lug nuts, hub seal, axle seal on the inside.
Oh, cool. That's right. If you did it right, that's when he'll say that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Parts is parts.
He'll say parts to parts.
Parts is parts. Back here, your reflective tape is all in place. My running lights on top, red in color. Make sure my turn signals, brake lights, all the lights back here work. Left and right turn signal, of course. Make sure the DOT bumper has not been dented or it's straight and it's welded on proper. Make sure the mud flaps are less than 6 inches off the ground.
Done deal?
No doors, so I don't have to check that. There's nothing back here mounted, so I don't have to, there's no mountings of any sort. Everything else is inside the cab.
Complete.
If you've done everything outside you can mess